All right, welcome everybody that's come here for our Salt Lake Open Circle event. Joel is not here today, so he's asked me to handle the technology, and you can see that I'm doing a great job. But anyway, it's noon, we're ready to start. Levi McPherson's our presenter today. If you've ever heard him before, he does a great job. He's got great ideas. He's definitely going to make more money because you know him, and should be very entertaining presentation today too. Anybody have anything they want to announce or bring up before we turn the time over to Levi?
So the Lean Startup meetup next week.
Okay.
It on Wednesday. So
Tell us where it is.
right here.
Okay.
Noon.
Noon next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday.
Okay. You know, what's the topic? Just lean startups?
We're going to be talking about how to create like a lean startup culture inside of the enterprise. So
Okay.
more of a larger organization type of thing.
Sounds good. While we're here, I'll pass around a sign-up sheet. If everybody kind of let us know who they are that's here, we'll make sure to include you on future events and things like that through the circle. So you're up.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Alrighty, just because I think it's funny for anyone that's watching on YouTube, if this looks backwards to you, grab a mirror. That's what you got to do. Okay, well, I'm super excited about what we're going to be covering today because it's a departure from what I would normally talk about. I would normally train you on, you know, some kind of business strategy or marketing strategy. And while there are components in here that absolutely apply to your ventures, it's going to apply to your personal income as well. So to start out, just a little bit about me, my story. I grew up on a small farm in Rexburg, Idaho, and I grew up really, really poor. I learned that Santa wasn't real. Hopefully there's no kids watching online. I learned that Santa wasn't real because he showed up too many times in the same night with gifts. Once he was in the bishop's car, once he was, you know, Secret Santa. And so I decided, this is kind of sound really odd, but by the time I was in junior high, I decided that I wanted to be a businessman. And I didn't want to just own one business, I wanted to own multiple businesses. And so I launched and sold my first business before I was 20 years old. I went to college, dropped out because I wanted to buy a business, and had some phenomenal success. My first business was an acquisition turnaround project that by the time we were done, our accountants, CPAs, and brokers all invested in our next venture because it was we thought we were the greatest things at squeeze cheese. We were the whiz kids. And, but all along, you know, I went from venture to venture. I've had a lot of success. I've written some books. I even got some famous viral videos. I've had the privilege of working with clients like Nike and Marriott and DirecTV and Disney and several others. But all the while, the oddity of it is that for some reason, I couldn't hold on to the money. I was always just enough. And that, you might say maybe that's because, you know, I have a wife and she spends what I earn, which is partially true. But for some reason, I would never be able to maintain a certain level of wealth. In fact, at my lowest low, I nearly lost everything. I ended up selling my baby, my 7 Series BMW, just for the minimum I could sell it just to pay for my rent. I ended up on food stamps, and you know, I decided that something had to change. Some of you that know my story know that I used to build glass buildings and sales organizations, and I finally turned in the golden shackles and said, you know what, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm only going to work on projects that I enjoy. But that's what got me in a situation where I had to sell my baby. And so basically I was in a situation that we would call money stress. Now, how many of you have experienced money stress? If you're not raising your hand, you're lying. You are lying. Okay. Well, here's the funny thing about money stress and what I was doing. When you're stressed about money, you actually are pushing it away from you. That's what I was doing. I had money swirling around me all the time. I had people that wanted to invest in me, people that wanted to make me their CEO, and I had inventions and things constantly going. But for some reason, I was like, no, I don't want that. Not enough. Not consciously, but subconsciously. One day I was in a online mastermind group, and I heard this lady tell her, actually it wasn't this lady, she grabbed this lady online, but it was a lady like this. This lady, maybe she was prettier, I don't know, but it was a lady that told this story about how she could go to any city in America, you could drop her anywhere as a complete stranger, and within 1 week, she would walk out with $30,000 to $40,000. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, that would be awesome if that was possible. But I struggled a little bit with the belief for a while, and I don't know where you're at with belief, but ask yourself this question: what can change in 7 days? What can change? Can you change your entire financial situation in 7 days? Is it possible? I remember watching, episodes of The Apprentice and thinking, wow, they did some crazy things in just 1 week, right? That's what it took to film the episode. If you have the right connections and other things, it's got to be possible. If you're a creationist, God created the world in 6 and rested, and right? So it's got to be possible. So I kept thinking about this. I could not get it out of my head. What can happen in just 7 days? And then one night I had a dream. I don't know if it was the tacos I ate before I went to bed or what, but I had a dream. And in the dream, I'm having a conversation with a guy, and I picture myself helping all these people. And the guy I'm talking to, he asked me, how are you going to do that? And I'm like, oh, that's simple. And in the dream, I had a thing of Scotch tape. So I pull out this little piece of tape, I put it on this desk, and I wrote the word hope. I'm going to do it with hope. And then you know how things go a little bit crazy in dreams. So each letter of the word hope pops out in an acronym form, which probably tells you more about how my brain works than how inspiration works. So it spells out help others prosper exponentially. And then the dream went on, and I actually pictured myself helping these people and actually coming up with these wealth engines on how I would help people. And then when I woke up, I told my wife about it, because it's one of those dreams that kind of felt real. And I don't know, I'm not a rainbows and unicorns kind of guy, so I just thought it was very inspirational. But the more I thought about it, I was like, you know what, there's got to be a way. There's got to be a way. There's more to this for me personally than just the tacos I ate the night before. So if there's one thing I am committed to in my life, it's not being that guy that tells you how to do something when I've never done it. Like there's nothing that drives me nuts more than that. The people that walk in and say, like when you go down to like Gold's Gym and the personal trainer walks up to you, then he's got the big old gut and he's like, well, you need to do lunges, and like, you need to do lunges, right? You need to eat less carbs. I think you're the guy. So I don't want to be that guy. This is a quote that my wife and I share with each other constantly, is, be the change that you want to see in the world. And so I thought, you know what? I can't teach other people how to prosper if I haven't done it. Yes, I've built companies. Yes, I've been successful in those regards. Yes, I've helped other people make a lot of money in my life. But personally, I didn't hold on to it. You sell a business, where's that money go? It goes into the next business. And it's kind of crazy when you're building a business and your top sales guy makes like double what you make. It's like, what's wrong with this picture? Well, what's wrong with that picture is you're not prospering. So what happened is, for those of you that know me, I am a self-proclaimed business nerd. I have read literally thousands of books. I've interviewed thousands of individuals. And I mean, I started reading business books when I was in junior high. Yes, I did get picked on, but I'm that guy. And so I took from everything that I had read and everything that I personally knew and applied, and I started taking it from the business world. This is what I know worked in my businesses. What would work in my personal life? I'm going to start applying these principles. So I did. And guess what? I discovered a revolutionary 7-day process. Now, part of this I'm going to go into. Now, I'm condensing like a whole day's worth of stuff into an hour. So some of this stuff is going to be kind of rocket speed, fire hydrant, but just take notes, buckle up. There'll be time for questions later. To me, the most shocking moment was when I was going through one of these processes and I literally doubled my income in one day and had the opportunity to triple it the same day. It just shocked me. I realized there is a secret. There are things that you can do that influence that outcome. So I started helping others because that's what I discovered in life, is that if you want to start something new that you've never done before, because you don't want to be that guy that's like, hey, I know how to do it. What I normally do is I pick people and I just start doing it for them. Then I produce the results. Then I go to somebody and say, hey, look at this process. This is how I got into film. This is how I ended up getting contracts with Disney and others, because I started filming and optimizing videos for my neighbors and for a politician. I did it for a politician. He won. He's the one that got me into Disney, just so you know. So then as I went through this process, I discovered more truths. And as with anything valuable, you get to a point where you're like, there's more to this than just keeping it to myself. If all I do is keep it to myself, I think I've shortchanged myself and I've shortchanged the world. So thus was born 7-Day Riches, because that was the domain that was available online. Right? Partially. So the first thing that I want to cover with you is what I'm calling the 5 laws of power. These are 5 laws that govern everything that you do. Every success that you experience is because of these 5 laws. The first one is called the law of energy. Now, what the law of energy is that everything we do, everything that influences has energy. Have you ever had somebody walk into a room and you immediately notice, or you notice everybody else noticing and you immediately notice? Why does that happen? And it's not when everybody walks in the room, it's only when certain people walk in the room. What is it about those individuals that causes you to take note? There's something unique about their energy. Or have you ever noticed, no, you have noticed, everybody's noticed, why is it that you can tell when someone's staring at you? Like, I was driving my car just the other day, and I was staring at a girl because I thought I knew her. And I'm looking, I get about this point, and all of a sudden she goes, looks over. How did she know I was staring at her? What is that? There's something to it. It's not just, obviously she didn't see me driving. So, oh, is that actually going? Yes, it's going. He caught her. Where's she gone? Or the phone call, right? Somebody calls you while you're thinking about them. That happens all the time. Why is that? Here's the reality. Anytime we think and feel, we emit energy, waves of energy. Now, even though we can't see them, they're tangible. I mean, if you would have told this to, cavemen, obviously they wouldn't have believed. But now we live in a world where we have cell phones. I can pick up my cell phone and I can call all the way to the other side of the planet. Does anyone see my voice traveling through the air? No one sees it, but yet it traveled on an energy wave. It happened. So this is what's happening in your mind. You're either transmitting energy or transmitting signals, you're receiving them, or you're blocking them, right? I don't want it. Put a buffer around me. So guess what that applies to. This is what I was doing, right? People were trying to give me money, and I was saying no. Like, one of the things that people call me for the most, like literally people will call me every single week and ask me to go to lunch so they can pick my brain. And I say, hey, I'm a cheap date, right? Give me free lunch and I'll give you what I charge everyone else, $1,000 an hour for. Why do I do that? All these things, those signals you're putting out are causing you to repel what you want. So what happens is you have a conflict between your conscious desire and your subconscious emotions, okay? So basically, there are two components to this: what we think and what we feel. That determines that energy. So our thoughts are the signal. It's the wavelength that goes out there, right? So I'm putting out the wavelength that, hey, I love teaching people. I love helping people. So somebody receives that wavelength and they call me and say, hey, Levi, can I take you to lunch and pick your brain, right? So I send that one, but I don't send the one that says, give me money, right? For some reason, that one didn't go. So that's the signal. But the feelings determine the intensity of that signal. It's the strength. So the more intense my emotional state is, the stronger and the further that signal goes. So I ask, when somebody walks in the room and everybody looks up, why do they feel it? That person is in a certain power frequency. It's real. And if we were in one of my soon-to-be workshops, I'd make you do this really voodoo thing and actually send energy to one another. But it's kind of weird. So basically, when it comes to money, whatever goes on inside here determines what you're doing. And this isn't just money. This is health. This is relationships. This is everything. So if you've got one of these going on, what's going to happen? This is what I want, right? Now, if before I got to this point in the presentation, I'd ask, who wants more money? I guarantee everyone would raise their hand. But then, on the other hand, I would have said, who is excited about getting more money? Maybe there might have been one or two that's like, oh, yeah. Why is that? It's what's going on in here, right? It's the emotional component. And if you don't have that, guess what doesn't happen? The other doesn't happen. That's probably the gal that they dropped in the middle of any city and walked out with 30 or 40 grand, right? She's pretty, right? No, this is the feeling of gratitude. It's more than just the excitement. It's the feeling of gratitude, which is part of a process that I go through. So, how many of you have ever heard me talk about the law of outcomes before? A couple of you. All right. Law of outcomes. What is the law of outcomes? Every outcome is attached to a process. You cannot dispute that. You also cannot dispute that if you change your process, you will change your outcome. No matter what. Any process. Physical process, psychological process, mental process, emotional process. You change it, you get a different outcome. I've proven that in business over and over and over. I've also proven that the earlier in the process you apply the change, the more leverage you have. Some of you heard me tell the story about how we weren't cash flowing in one of my first businesses. And we decided that, or we determined the reason why is we were asking for 50% up front and then 50% when the job was done, but they were holding that last 50% over our heads, until every little detail was to their exact, precise satisfaction, and sometimes they drag it out because they didn't have the money. So we realized, okay, where do we have the most leverage? We're in the process, early in the process. The earlier in the process for us was at the point of sale. So we decided to do a 50-40-10. 50% when you sign the contract, 40% when we deliver the goods, and 10% you can hold over our heads forever or until you're satisfied. And suddenly we're profitable cash flow, and it's amazing. Same thing can happen in your personal processes. So if you can change what your thoughts and feelings are about money, I promise you, you will absolutely change your outcomes. It's how I doubled my income in one single day. I changed my thoughts and my feelings about money. Okay? I know we're going lightning speed here, but it's because we got a very short amount of time. Law of attraction. Now, you've all heard this one, right? Well, I'm going to tell it to you in a way that's different than you've heard. I'm not going to tell you the version where you sit in your living room on a couch and you're like, I'm driving the Ferrari, I'm driving the Ferrari. The Ferrari is in my living room. Does that really happen? Does it show up in your living room like that? No, it really doesn't. So, but the first part of it is actually important, believe it or not. So, you only get the things that you really want. No desire, no action, no results. So the opposite of that, of course, is what? Now here's one of the secrets that I discovered, is that our dominant feelings, wherever they came from, whether or not they were an imprint from childhood or some brutally emotional experience you have, our dominant feelings will push us towards or away from the things that we want. So even though, like you, I wanted more money, I had a dominant underlying feeling saying, money is scary, money is stressful, money is this and that, and you don't deserve it, and all these various things, and those are dominant. So imprints, who's read about imprints before, like emotional imprinting? The basic principle is this. The first time you encounter an emotional experience that you never experienced before, that creates like a stamp on your emotional fingerprint. And after that, it's there. And then you got to interpret it. So this principle, memories are the filter through which we interpret the now. That's the way our brains work. It's a physical thing more than it is a psychological thing. So anytime we have a new experience, we're always comparing it to something in the past. So what does that mean for us if we want to change the future? Unfortunately, it means we've got to change the past, right? So if you can change the emotions attached to your memories, you change the now. Which I remember, I used to think, the psychologist thing where they had you lay on the couch, which I've never done, but I always wanted to. I thought it'd be cool. Go back to your past and tell me about, why you left socks on the floor. And it's like, well, it's because I hated my father. Right? No, that's not what we're talking about. We are talking about, though, you do have emotional imprints when it comes to money. And we're only dealing with money today because that's what the topic was about. I'm going to jump to the next one. The law of creation. What the law of creation states is that everything and anything has to first be created psychologically before it can be created physically. Now, psychological means our thoughts and our feelings. So you can't dispute that. You can't create anything in your life if you don't create it up here and here first. So you want to change your situation. Yes, I just said you got to go in the past. You got to change how the past looks, but you also have to change what it looks like moving forward. Anything we see with absolute clarity and feel with absolute certainty, we can create. Oh yeah, we got time. So about a year and a half ago, I started training with the most decorated natural bodybuilder in the world. His name is Ron Williams. He's won over 250 titles, 7-time Mr. Natural World, 7-time Mr. Natural Universe, 7-time Mr. Natural Olympia. He's technically the most decorated natural bodybuilder in the world. Now, at the time, I was what you would consider a skinny fat guy, right? Skinny up here, and then I had the muffin top, and so I would wear these and cardigans and stuff to cover it up. So I started working with him, and I've heard him speak so many times, but I asked him, how did you become who you are? And he told me, he said, I became Mr. Universe 2 years before I was Mr. Universe, before I won the award. I'm like, what do you mean? He said, well, I stood alone, and I pictured in my head, I said, I am Mr. Universe, and I tried to picture it. And I closed my eyes, and I says, do I believe it? Can I feel it? He's like, all right, I got it. And then, because he saw it, and he knew what was necessary to get there, he got there and won. Now, several years later, his son came to him and said, Dad, I want to be a bodybuilder. It's like, great, you know what? Keep it in the family. It is a good thing. He says, no, Dad, I don't just want to be a bodybuilder. I want to win. He's like, well, son, you got some good genetics. You could probably win a few, I'm sure. And he's like, no, Dad, I want to do what you did. In fact, I want to beat your record. And he's like, whoa, hold on there, son. I'm not sure if you're prepared to do what's necessary to do what I did. Just do this for me. He said, look at the wall. Tell me what you see. Well, I see some bricks. No, son. Look at the wall and tell me what you see. Well, there's some little holes and some grout. I don't know. No, son. Look at the wall and tell me what you see. He says, I don't know, Dad. What do you want me to say? He says, that's the reason why you can't do what I did. He says, until you can see past the wall, you can see your success on the other side, and you got to go out in the street, grab it, and drag it in, kicking and screaming. So I'm no longer a skinny fat guy because I followed that process from Ron Williams. I started going through a mental psychological process because I could see with clarity and I felt it with certainty. Believe it or not, when I started working with him, I didn't believe that I could get even in the physique that I'm in now. I'm actually in the best shape of my life. I've never been at this status, even though I did athletics when I was younger. But part of it was because when he was coaching me, he kept telling me what I could do, which helped with the certainty. If Mr. Universe says I can do this, and he knows I can do this, okay? Next, the law of exchange. This may be the most critical, or one of the most critical laws that you encounter today. We only make exchanges for things that we place a higher value for, not equal. People think, like if I just ask, normally people say equal value. No, if it was equal, why would you make an exchange? So we only take action, we only move forward, but an exchange has to happen. So here's the truth. If you're not experiencing the change you want, it's because you don't value it more than what you currently have. I know that sounds harsh, but guess what? I valued being poor more than I valued being rich, because I wasn't willing to let go of the past, right? Have you heard about how they catch monkeys? Anyone ever heard this story? Okay, so what they do is they take a coconut and they bore 2 holes in it. They bore a small hole in the bottom through which they feed a rope, they tie a knot, and then they anchor that rope into the ground, and then they put a little bit bigger hole in the top. Then they put the monkey's favorite food in. The monkey then comes along, slips his hand in, grabs the food, and then when he goes to get out, guess what? The hand got bigger. He can't get out. And when the captors come, he won't let go because he wants it more. He values that food more than the terror of getting caught by the captors. And all he'd have to do is let go. I'm telling you, we have to do the exact same thing. If you don't change the past, you are the monkey in the trap. I was the monkey in the trap. Okay? So, we can either, here's the reality. There's 2 ways to do it. You can either increase the value of what it is that you want, mentally, emotionally, or you can decrease the value of what you currently have. Right? You've heard other people tell you, like take a picture of yourself in the mirror, so so you can see how bad it really is. Suddenly it's like, oh, I don't want that as much anymore. I suddenly don't want the big burger anymore because I don't want what I see in the mirror. You've got to do, so you have 2 options here. It's either increase the value of what it is that you want or decrease the value of what it is that you don't want. And those are all done here and here, okay? Pause. Any questions at this point? I'm just curious. I'm going a little bit faster than I thought that I might. So we have a little bit of time. Any questions at this point?
So when you talk about increasing the value of something, so to me, I think, gosh, there's so many different values on something. So there's like time, for example, and there's cash, and there's relationships or whatever. So what do we look at when we want to increase the value?
So you have to pick one thing. You have to pick one thing that you're going after. And then you have to do things to increase the value. So what you do, I'll just kind of jump ahead a little. One of the things that you do is you have to fill that, the image of that with emotion. And it's not just any emotion. It's a very, very specific emotion. I've always been really good at creating intense emotion. But the problem I found is just intense emotion may still be negative. It has to be positive emotion. If it's not positive, you won't value it more. It's still kind of in a neutral zone, and it may even be going backwards. Does that make sense? So,
go in a little deeper about changing the past. I mean, the past is what it is, right? How do you change something that happened?
so that is the question. So a couple things. One, you go back to the earliest memory of the past that governs whatever it is you're trying to change in the future, right? And then there are a few methods that I will get into later that will allow you to break those shackles. But I can tell you the first one for freedom. If you really want freedom, truthfully want freedom more than you want to hold on to that stupid thing in the coconut shell, you actually have to forgive everyone related to that experience. Everyone. Yourself, everyone. And I have a process that I go through that I call the script, but you literally you gotta let it go. You also have to be grateful that you had the experience. And I have a process that I take people through to help them do that. You have to be grateful for it, and then those kinds of things diffuse it, right? If you could truly say, I forgive everyone in there, including myself and anything, they don't have any draw, they don't have any control, they can't pull me back. If I truly say, you know what, I am so stinking grateful. You know, when I was in high school, I woke up, I took a nap one evening. I woke up and my body went into a full-blown seizure. Full-blown. After the seizure was done, my body would twitch and spasm. It never stopped twitching and spasming. I spent 2/3 of my junior year trying to get over this illness. It ended up being a chemical poisoning because I grew up in a farm community and I had several chemicals in my body that were attaching to my neurotransmitters and they were just pounding it. So when I look at everything that's happened in my life, I will tell you that has never ever been a negative thing for me, ever. Even when I was going through it, I always look at that and say that was one of the best experiences I ever had in my life. I am so grateful for it because it changed me. It made me sensitive to people, which I wasn't before. Before that, I was selfish. I was purely self-centered. And for some reason, it caused me to be sensitive to the needs of others. So if you could truly be grateful for everything, no matter what, whether you think it's bad or good. One story or one analogy I like to compare it to is, the Karate Kid. Everyone's seen, Mr. Miyagi's son, and Daniel, he wants to learn karate, right? You want to earn money. He wants to learn karate. So Mr. Miyagi first has him, wax the car, and then he has him paint the fence, and then he has him paint the house. And after a while, it starts looking like hardship to Daniel, right? This is pain. This isn't helpful. And then finally, when Daniel's ready to throw in the towel, and Mr. Miyagi says, "Daniel-san, wax a car," and then he tries to punch him and he blocks it, and paint a fence and he kicks and he blocks it. Now finally he realizes, oh my goodness, I need to be grateful for what I just experienced. So I have something that I call stepping into your greatness, which is going back and looking at the challenges you've gone through and saying, guess what that's doing? That's revealing your greatness to you. Because whenever you overcome an obstacle, it uniquely qualifies you to help someone else. And the real value you're going to create in this world is going to come by helping other people. That's where it comes from, right? My dream was either tacos or it was inspiration. Doesn't matter. The reality is your value comes when you help other people. That makes sense? Okay, so wealth, as I just stated, is created by exchanging value with other people. That's how it happens. There's no other way that it happens. It doesn't happen sitting alone on an island and escaping like I used to want to do. After we sold our first piece of real estate, our first real estate investment, I was young, I was in my 20s, I had almost 100 grand. I'm like, oh, let's go to Mexico and we'll live there like kings and I'll write my book. It wasn't nothing to do about writing a book. It was, I'm out of here. But if I was out of there, I wasn't really exchanging value with anyone. Does that make sense? So this is a true principle. Anyone that studied economics in college will understand this principle. The faster value exchanges occur, the more wealth is created. So a lot of times when we look at the economy and we think, oh, it's how much money is in the economy. It's not how much money is in the economy. It's the speed at which it exchanges hands. That determines the strength of the economy. The same thing applies for your own microeconomy. You want to get wealthy, you have to exchange value faster and faster and faster and faster. I've heard before that money likes speed. I think that's what they meant by that. So I'm going to ask this question to you. What can change in 7 days? Could I have done more than double my income in 1 day? I could have. By the way, that process was pretty amazing. I did my process in the morning, and then I was literally just driving the car to see a friend, and I got a call out of the blue. Someone wanted to pay me more than double my income, more than double my cash flow. And that's not saying that I was poor. Understand, I've bought 3 BMWs with cash, right? I understand what it's like to have money, but I never understood how to keep it until I started going through this process. So what can change for you in just 7 days? What do you want to change for you in 7 days? Now, 7 days is a number I pulled out of the air because it was symbolic and it was available on Google, right? But 7 days is also important because it's a process. What I really want you to understand is that there is a frequency that you create. So when the guy walks in the room and everybody looks, it's because that person is emitting a power frequency. What I want to help you do is get into that frequency earlier and stay in it longer. Because the longer you can stay in that frequency, the more power you have. The more power you have, the more lives you can help, the more money you can generate, the more good you can do. Now, I knew going into this there was only an hour as opposed to a full workshop, so I can't dig into everything even though I desperately want to. But one thing I want you to understand, we went through 5 laws that govern power, right? Govern how you create wealth, how you improve your relationships, how you improve your health. And then we went through some principles. Ultimately, you've got to develop some skills to make it happen. You've got to do the hard stuff. You've got to do the work. You have to do the exercises. So I have a 7-day process that I go through to unlock, change the past, and then reprogram what the future looks like, get myself in a power frequency state so that now I can attract instead of repel the things that I want. And I want to take you through it. But unfortunately, in this setting, I don't have the time to get you in that emotional state. And so this is what I really need help with. This is something that I'm starting that's new. I need 5 more minutes. Just 5 minutes. I need 5 more minutes. But I need 5 minutes in a one-on-one setting. And that 5 minutes is just to determine whether or not I can take you through the process. See, I'm writing a book. I'm creating a video channel. I'm going to be writing articles about this. And so I actually need 5 people. I need 5 people that are willing to go through, sign a talent release waiver, willing to go through in front of a camera this 7-day process with me. But before I get to that point, I need 5 minutes to just talk to you and ask you a few questions. And so this is what I want you to do. This is my personal cell phone number. If you would like to have that 5-minute conversation with me, just text me your information. I will reach out to you. I can promise you this. Whether or not you're one of these 5 people that I go through this process with or not, the things that I have personally experienced, if you apply them, I'm not perfect at them, right? I'm just, I'm kind of like just the messenger. I'm not perfect at them, but they've worked in my life. I'm not, I try to make sure I'm not that guy, that guy. And I'm applying them in the lives of others. I mean, I had one gal that I was working with that she started creating all this income and then suddenly it just stopped. It blocked. And she's like, I don't understand what's happening. Suddenly I went from everybody reaching out to me wanting my help to now I feel like I'm trying to sell people. I don't get it. What's the problem? We went through just a 1-session process and her income in the next 3 days tripled. I'm not promising that to anyone. I'm just telling you it's possible. It's possible that you could have this type of transformation. Is it going to only happen in 7 days? Remember, there's laws, principles, and skills. Will it take longer? Maybe. But there is a 7-day process that you follow every single day for 7 days a week that will get you in a power frequency. And if there's one thing I've learned, some of you I've told before about my famous uncle, one of my famous uncles. He's a world famous artist. He's, in my opinion, the greatest wildlife artist in the world. And he told me once his definition of talent. He said, talent is the ability to persist until you get it right. So people look at famous composers, musicians, artists, business people, and they say, wow, they're talented. Yes, they are. They persisted until they got it right. But the only way they got it right is they had to discover the principles. And that's what I want to share with you, is the laws and the principles, and help you develop the skills. Questions? I don't know how long we've got the room.
Got as long as you want. I don't think anything else is scheduled down here, but you've got 7 minutes till you get to your 1 hour.
7 minutes. Okay, Q&A. Ask me anything.
Only at 2. So yeah, a lot of time.
Anything. Honestly, you can ask me anything.
On your 7 days, what's the time commitment per day?
At a minimum, you need to commit to, technically, you need to commit 2 hours. Just because you're learning a new process. Some of that will be with me, and some of that will be on your own. But technically, for those 7 days process, we don't technically have to go through it together every day. A minimum on your own process, you need to spend at least 60 minutes. And then you're going to break, on your weekend, you need at least a 2-hour chunk of time, if not more, because you've got to clear up some stuff. I mean, you have to go through the process. There's no way to avoid it. So, anything else?
When is that going to take place?
So I am actually already in the process of doing this with a few people. I'm not guaranteeing that all 5 are going to come from this room, but it will happen within the next 2 to 4 weeks for the people in this room. So you can ask me anything. I mean, you got my time. Yeah.
Are you gonna write it in your book too?
Yes.
So,
So that individual, if they don't end up in the book, absolutely they will end up in an article that's published, their experience, and they'll be used in film for community channel as well as promotional materials. So
We want to look good.
you want to look good.
Sorry, you're out.
Yeah, I know that's not my 5-minute question. Are you attractive? Nope.
What started you down this path?
Down this path,
Going from business down this
so the truth is, I read Tony Robbins' Unlimited Power when I was 14, I think. I read Covey 7 Habits when I was 16. I've always been in love with the idea that if you change somebody's thought process, you can change the outcome. And I've always been applying these kinds of principles in my own businesses. But I did get to a point, not that many years ago, where I was putting in 80-hour work weeks. And you know, I'm a pretty trim guy now, not the skinny fat guy that I was before, but I'm a pretty trim guy now. But I had gotten to a state where I was so stressed where I was almost 40 pounds lighter than I am now. So basically it was like, hey, I can disappear, cool trick, right? And I wasn't fulfilled in what I was doing. And part of it was I've always had this nagging in the back of my mind that I could help more people. You know, I grew one of the largest DirecTV dealerships in the country. But, and I'm not saying that's good or bad, but for me personally, I didn't feel that I was making a difference the way that my personal gifts were geared, if that makes sense. I was mentoring employees, which is great. I was mentoring other business partners. I was mentoring investors, but I wasn't mentoring people the way that I wanted to, if that makes sense. But great question, thank you.
Searching for a deeper connection with
Me searching for a deeper connection?
other humans. More meaning.
More meaning,
Yeah.
more meaning. Exactly. I mean, my primary drive, I think, has always been there. I mean, I literally, so if you would have seen my bedroom when I grew up in a family with 8 kids. So a family of 10, farm, really messy, right? Our house it was bad. Mom, I'm sorry. It was really bad. But there was one place in that house that was always extremely clean and organized. And that was my room. In fact, I would come home and I would catch my mom in my reading chair. And I'm like, Mom, what are you doing? Oh, I just feel so peaceful in here. And in my room, I had pictures all the way around the room of things that inspired me. And then in between every single picture, like most people, have borders of sports teams or maybe the border is like fishing things or whatever. Mine was inspirational picture, quote. Inspirational picture, quote. And a lot of those quotes were actually ones that I wrote for myself. And one of the things that I had written on one of those quotes was my mission at the time. So as a 17-year-old kid, I wrote that my mission was to bless the lives of others. And I felt that at my core. So I've had that, hanging over my head now for over 20 years. Like, wait a minute, I'm growing this business. Am I really blessing the lives of others? And I have my own definition of what that means. Everybody has their own. And I should put a very, very important classifier at this juncture. My personal belief about business is that even though what I just said, that I made a transition, it's not that you create the business and then you do the good thing. The business is the virtue, right? Business is virtuous. Whatever it is that you're doing, because if you're adding value to people. So the phone that's in my bag, that is virtuous. Change the world. Cell phone, change the world. If you're an Adam Smith fan, Adam Smith believed that commerce did more to civilize the world than anything else. I agree with him because of the law of exchange. Now, because I have to exchange something with you, we got to get along. I can't just beat you over the head and drag you off, and that doesn't work, right? If I do that, none of your buddies are going to do trades with me. If I eat you, it's over, right? That's how it works. So I want to make sure that classifier is very stamped in hard. What you're doing in business is virtuous as long as you're creating value. Going down to Walmart and buying a loaf of bread, that is a tremendous virtue. My standard of life and your standard of life is infinitely higher than previous generations because a businessman named Sam Walton decided, hey, let's put a big box discount store in the middle of these rural areas. So hopefully that makes perfect sense.
Have you found in your experience that your viewpoint on life something has happened to you that changed the way you look at the world drastically?
So drastically, the first one, when I was in high school and I had that chemical poisoning, went through those seizures. I mean, dramatically changed my perspective on life. I looked at people in a way that I never had before.
Other than that?
Other than that, Unfortunately, a lot of mine are like illness related, or I haven't had too many quote unquote business failures, but I have had business partnership failures. And those will rock your world. Those will change your perspective on life. Yeah, I've had several along the way that gave me dramatic course corrections. You know, I used to believe in business that it doesn't matter what kind of business it is. It's a widget or it's a piece of wood. I love it. It's business. We can turn around any business. And I've just, for me personally, I've gotten to that point where I want to influence the influencers. I want to help the people that have a voice, that have something of value, that they want to exchange to achieve their goals and their dreams. If that makes sense.
What are the businesses to have where you could take it and take say like, you know what, I want to invest in this. It may not be popular, but I like the guys, I just want to invest in them.
Oh, what type of businesses do I invest in?
Yeah, like what catches your attention?
What catches my attention as far as investing in businesses?
Yeah.
Normally ones that, I'm a social technology geek. Like I love gamification, if you know what that is. So it's applying game mechanics to non-game processes. So turning work into a game. Businesses that do stuff like that, I love. Social shifting business. I mean, I like to say that things like Facebook, even though his intentions weren't to do what happened, I mean, Facebook changed the world. It truly has changed the world. So yeah, I love technology-based companies. That's kind of where I've gotten to. I mean, I didn't start out like that. I started out with a manufacturing business. We made furniture and high-end cabinetry. You know, it's pretty cool, but it's pretty, you know, pretty localized. So, did that answer your question, I hope? So, also, you know, basically, I invest in things that change, that have the potential to change. So I am a partner in a publishing company. That's actually how I got my first book published. Right? If you own the publishing company, guess what? You can say what gets published. So, anything else? Anything. You can ask me if my socks are clean. I mean, you name it. It's all fair game.
Just a comment, I mean, I just read an article, it seems like, I don't know, they were just complaining that some companies out there are really looking for valuation or, you know, and money and not value. So there's like, I don't know, these companies are really high value, they don't have a high valuation, don't really seem to offer much value. So it's like, yeah, or like Snapchat or something like that. So I was just kind of thinking of the concept of value. What is value, you know?
So I discovered this several years ago, mostly because I got in a debate with my wife. The value is based on perception. Meaning, I mean, I got a buddy that spent about I think it was $5,000 or $6,000 for a pocket knife. Most people look at that and go, "You're crazy," and he's thinking, "I love this thing. This is the best pocket knife I've ever had." Right? So you look at things like you mentioned, I think Snapchat.
Or maybe some things going on on Wall Street, and they really have that much value for the kind of money they're making.
So sometimes the value, the real or perceived value, may not come out until later. I mean, I personally was one of those that was like, Facebook? No, that's so stupid. Wasting your time. Like I told my wife, you're wasting your time on this dumb Facebook app or whatever it was at the time. I don't think it was an app back then. And then one weekend while she was in DC, I'm like, oh, what the heck, I'm going to check it out. Right? Invited a bunch of friends, and then I realized, you know what? It allows for conversations that, I mean, I connected with people that I haven't connected with in years. Whole social movements, entire regimes have experienced a turnover because of communication on Facebook. So you'll always have your standard, real value, your survival, your air, food, shelter, things like that. Energy, which is that real or is that perceived value? Is it a real value that my wife sets the temperature at 68 degrees instead of just letting me put on a sweater and a coat for whatever temperature nature created? Is it real or is it perceived? So that one, you look at it, that's a perceived value. She perceives that she wants it 68 degrees. So that's why I say when you look at value out in the marketplace, you can't always judge it based off of, oh, that's a real value or that's not a real value. If it changes somebody's life, if it psychologically or physically, there's value there. Does that make sense? I'll give you one more example on that one. So for one of my first turnarounds was a manufacturing business I mentioned. We did high-end cabinetry, and I had the opportunity to bid on the cabinetry for Steve Young's brother. And I went in there and I'm like, oh boy, this is a big house, right? One of those houses where they put drinking fountains in the halls? Like that kind of house. I'm like, oh. So probably how much we've been charging on these other houses, that's gonna spook her. She's gonna think it's not gonna be good quality. So we're gonna have to raise our prices somehow and add some other perceived value, do something. So I went back to the designer and I had him change the bid. And if I remember right, he bumped it up like 40, 50%. And I'm like, all right, that's cool. And he's like, no, it's probably got to go more than that. And if I remember right, he bumped it up. He finally got to where it was like almost double. It was like 60, 70% more than what we normally would charge. We lost the bid. And the company that put the cabinets in, she paid, Mrs. Young, paid for those cabinets triple our doubled price. Triple. And she loved it. She loved it. It was a brand name, in the community, so she loved telling people. She'd bring people in her home and, yeah, so-and-so did these cabinets and, we love them. So was that real value or perceived? And does it matter? It brought happiness into her life. She really enjoyed it. She really did. So it's a real challenge. So even when you're going back and looking at changing the references you have on money in your past, you actually have to break down some of those things. Those are barriers that you have where you say, hey, oh man, I would never spend that much for that. I would never do that. Would you? Why not? You got to challenge everything in this process. One last question.
Okay, for somebody like you who's been physical products, the last presentation I had from you is like a digital marketing guru, YouTube and stuff. So why are you moving to content marketing like this? I assume I followed a lot of people online and online training. I kind of see that's where this is going to go to scale, a physical online platform or something. So why did you choose a platform like this for this business and not a physical product or something different, a service-based? Because you are a guru and you could help other people, and within those aspects you can fulfill the hope vision, and so you're just helping people at different levels within their journey. So why choose a digital content platform, and is that something that you would recommend for people right now who are looking to start a business?
So 2 things, maybe 3, because there's always got to be 3 with me, right? 1, there will be physical products coming out, but this is just where I'm at right now. Number 2, the move for digital is that speed of exchange. So the younger the generations go, the more need to have access. I mean, you know, he mentioned Snapchat, and you know, there's other platforms out there that those audiences that are there, I won't be able to reach the same way that I would be reached. You know, if I just put out a book, a hard copy book, unfortunately, so as a digital marketer, I can tell you, when it comes to websites, less than 20% of people, when they land on a website, read beyond the major bolded headings. Less than 20%. They don't read anymore. But if there's a video, and you know this because I do video marketing, if there's a video, more than 80% will click on that big button. And they'll remember it. So having those real conversations over the digital network is meaningful to me because I can reach more people. So would I recommend it? So I read a stat the other day that both excited and scared me. Supposedly, and I don't know for sure if this stat is accurate. I did look at the study. The second fastest growing industry in America is life coaching. That says a few things to me. It says to me that we are digitally overwhelmed. We are looking for direction. We need something to simplify our lives, to give it direction so that we don't panic. It says to me that maybe this is the right timing for me to come out with something that I've wanted to do for a very, very long time. And it says also that people value content. I was surprised how much individuals and companies pay for training. And you know, I've sold training. I've done LinkedIn training, I've done sales training, I've done, you know, online marketing training, and I've done the actual services end. Now, I normally do the services end because I kind of like to control things. I like to control the outcome. I have a principle that I think you've heard me teach, you know, start with what you can control. And so that's why I start with my own self first. I can control that. I can control the variables as far as I can. But yeah, if you want to, I mean, are you thinking of doing an information-based?
Yeah, I mean, I go to switch back and forth to physical products or information. You know, so
The other thing about physical-based products is there's an extra expense. So in information-based products, you spend more on the marketing, but manufacturing, you got the cost of that plus the marketing, and it just takes longer to get those types of things running. But yes, I am absolutely going to do some physical products and some services. So there you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.